All right, well, why don't we call the meeting to order at 11:05. It appears that we do not have a quorum, so we won't be able to make decisions or vote on anything, but I suspect we still have a few things that we need to talk about. When we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, though.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, for the record, roll call.
Jennifer Nisino.
Jack Crawford.
Dean Groves. And we have members from the public that are also here today.
Morning, Anthony Fell from Pelican Advisory Committee.
Carol Pancall from the CDD, Nancy Straw from Pelican Preserve Community Association.
Ben Hedges, CDD, or, yeah, PPAC. Oh, Tony DeAndrea, Portfield.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, everyone. Public comment. We have a couple of slips here for people that want to speak. Nancy Straw.
Yes, this is Nancy Straw. I live in Monterey. The new signage out front, while I understand the intent is to prevent vehicles from being over height and hitting it, I think that more remedies should be pursued. We've had many complaints about how unsightly it is. It doesn't match the atmosphere and tone of Pelican Preserve. They're kind of large, in-your-face sort of signs. And I've only talked to one person who's driven in since they were put up who did not notice that.
Did not know.
Yeah, only one that did not notice that. Don't know what they were looking at, but anyway, I really would encourage GSCDD to continue to look for other alternatives that would detect overheight vehicles and prevent the problem from happening without having that unsightly signage that's out there.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Tony DeAndrea.
Yeah, hi, Tony DeAndrea Portofino. I really share Nancy's concerns as well. But, you know, from my standpoint, I look at the signage that was just added as totally unappealing. And not just to my eye, but there's been plenty of folks who have made comments from the standpoint of it looks like a way station now. It's an eyesore, and it's a little bit of overkill because it's a bombardment of signs when you walk in. There's three out there now. One looks like a billboard, which is totally not with the look and feel of our property. You know, I've spent some time while I've been here just going through some of the other communities just to look to see what do they have for height restriction signs. I've yet to see one. Now, I understand there's been some issues, and I don't know the detail, that there's been some recent incidents where the overhang was hit. This place has been around for 20 plus years, and I don't know that it's been an issue in the past. I don't know what we're trying to solve with signs. I mean, I know that signs don't solve it. When I look at signs, you know, I see plenty of them for speed limits and stop signs, and it hasn't stopped people from speeding, hasn't stopped people from going through stop signs. So I don't know that signs is the solution. I think a better system, I guess, needs to be in place. Like, what are we trying to achieve? What do we need people to do versus just a random sign that says 9'6". And, you know, I'm pretty sure, and I think it was mentioned at one of these meetings, that if you have a commercial driver's license, you need to know what the height requirements are before you go through any type of a overpass or whatever. So, you know, in my opinion, I ask, take them down and look for another solution. Because, you know folks are going to hide under the guise of liability and everything else, but, you know, it's just unsightly right now. So Yeah, I guess that's quickly.
Okay, thank you, Tony. We are going to be discussing the signs in a little bit. It's on the agenda as well, so we kind of anticipated.
I appreciate that. And like, I just want to emphasize one point, not solely my opinion. I think Nancy mentioned that there was plenty that mentioned to her, but also the same with me. A number of folks have said they're just ungodly. It's just
Okay.
mostly the one above the guardrails.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other public comments? No? Okay. There are no minutes available for approval for today's meeting. I'm sure they exist. We just didn't receive them for our review and approval. So
We wouldn't be able to approve them anyways.
well, we would have been able to review them.
Yep.
The financial report for January 2024 was in our package. At the present time, according to this budget, we have a annual budget of $768,500. Actual year to date is $247,447 expended. There's an additional $188,000 that are encumbered. Not sure exactly what that constitutes. I've asked Laura for some help, particularly on the road and sidewalk maintenance line. There's $179,370 that are encumbered that I think we need to have a better understanding about. But as far as expenses to date, on that line item, road and sidewalk maintenance, we're over budget by about $5,000 or $6,000, and it's only January. So
Laura is online, I believe. If you want to ask a question.
so perhaps Laura, if you could help us understand some of those issues.
Yeah, I did. I emailed you the information that you requested, but since you're at the meeting, I'm sure you didn't see it. I just sent it. I need to work with Sonia to move some of those things out of that road and sidewalk maintenance line over to the capital lines. So you'll see that reflected in your February financials. That makes sense.
It might make sense. So what's identified in there might more properly be considered capital. So what you said.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And that could be road resurfacing.
Some of the road resurfacing is in there. There's some other things in there too. I didn't have time to dig into it in any great detail, but there are some things that that should be moved. Like we have some encumbrances for the speed hump, which is actually a capital project that needs to be moved from there over to the capital side. That's part of that encumbrance. So there's some things that need to be pushed over to the other account.
So to that point, there is a capital line item of $285,000 that's not reported on this financial report at this time.
There's several lines that are not reported on the capital lines that are not on there that will be on when you see your financial stuff for February. I've added them. Dean, I sent you the screenshot so you can see what'll be in there. So you'll see that going forward.
Did anybody else have any comments about it?
No, I noticed that, and I also noticed that we're pretty much 4 months into the year, and we have 43% of the budget left. So I just wanted to make sure we all really understood that as we're approving some of these other items.
Well, I think that's probably deceiving because of the money that's not identified there.
Absolutely.
Laura, are you available sometime next week or soon thereafter for myself and maybe Ed Hedges to meet with you to kind of review some of those items so we have a better understanding on what is included in capital budget line items, as well as starting to think about budgeting for fiscal 25?
Yeah, I am. Look at my schedule.
Okay, right. Well, well, offline, then we can set something up, and Daniel, certainly if you can join us, it would be great too, but it would just, there's just some confusing things here that we need to have a better handle.
Yep.
Ed, that okay? You,
Yeah, no, I mean, I brought up at the last PPAC meeting that we got a real disconnect in this year's budgeting where we only have about 2.8 million in capital reserves, and then we're funding 200,000. So basically $3 million in capital reserves. But this year's capital line item budgets is over $1 million. And over the next 5 years, it's like 4 million. So there's a disconnect between the level of capital projects that are in the 5-year plan and our reserves. And Doug was at that meeting from Ponds and said that a lot of those were duplicative, that what was in the capital plan, he has incorporated in his annual operating budget items. So it's kind of a bowl of spaghetti right now that we got to sort out to figure really what level, because we can't spend the capital dollars that are in the budget or wipe out most of our reserves. So we got to figure it out before we go into next year's budget process. And there's issues of how much of these projects do we fund as out of the annual budget as a program versus a capital or a project that we pull from capital reserves. So we're going to be resurfacing streets for the next 15 years. Should that just be part of an annual program that we fund annually, or stick the money into additional money into capital reserves just to pull it out of capital reserves every year for the next 15 years? That's what we have to sort out in this next year for the next year's budget. So.
okay. All right, any further discussion on the financial report? Okay. Let's go to items for discussion. First up, Pelican Preserve Guardhouse safety signs. The signs were put up in response to 2 or 3 recent hits of the three hits in the last couple of months, I think.
6 months.
6 months of the guardhouse. The damage to the guardhouse caused by the overheight vehicles. When the signs, when the house was first hit, with 6 months ago, the clearance information got removed as part of part of the impact. And so Daniel, you did go out and I think you met with people from KW in the field, and I think you came up with basically the plan that got implemented last week. Is that a summary of what happened?
We went through and we worked out signage that actually met DOT standards. That's why they're big, bright, yellow, and ugly, but they are the actual DOT standards that marry up. Versus like in kind, where before the max height sign was there and it was actually the same color as the building, which didn't stand out. Drivers couldn't see it. So holding people accountable for hitting and striking even though there should be CDL license and know that they shouldn't drive underneath it, was one of the very first things that was it posted, who's liable here. Then we got these signs out, put up. There's 3 signs. Like Tony had said, there's 3 signs, there's 2 in the median. There's 1 on the overhang, clearly delineating the height restrictions. Currently working on getting a truck stay right sign so that we can keep everybody in the right-hand lane and just keep all the trucks out of the left-hand lane to go underneath the overpass. I did an initial search for a mitigation device that will stop it from allowing anybody to really come underneath. And based off the trends that I'm seeing from the strikes that did happen with vehicles, it's not necessarily the vehicle itself that's hitting it. It's typically something that's attached to the end of a trailer. So I looked at a basically a bar with an overhang. You see them a lot at like McDonald's and other places where they have drive-throughs with overhangs that don't allow you to actually physically get through it without hitting that before you actually strike the building. So that we don't have structural damage after 3 strikes on that building. I really question what the structural integrity is of the building. How many times do we hit it? How many times do I need to bring out a structural engineer to come and do an assessment on it before that building's going to have to be replaced? Right? Getting hit with an 18-wheeler put some serious foundational structure pressure on it. So luckily enough, there's some formidable over-designed pillars in there. So I think the structure is sound at the moment. So leaning into this to not have it happen anymore, we put those signs up. And I'm now working with Dean on trying to find a light veil that we can put in and install that we can also incorporate with the arm. So out away from the building itself, something that would capture not only just the truck, but the trailer that would be attached. If a light veil was triggered or a laser veil was triggered, to say it when it exceeded the max height, the arm come back down on the gate, and then maybe having a flashing light that tells the driver they need to stop. To have a hard control in place to stop people from driving through. And maybe we can mitigate some of the harshness of signs in the future when we can find something to that effect.
Yeah, it is pretty intensive with the signage that did go up. What are the sizes of the diamond signs?
Oh, I have to go back and look at the specs, but I believe they're 48 by 36. They're large signs.
They're large.
Yeah, they're large.
I think the manual on uniform traffic control devices would allow them to be smaller. 30 by 30 is the size of the diamond signs that we have throughout the community. So that would be one option to consider, I think. Another option is less of them. I personally think the 2 9-foot-6-inch warning signs, one in the median and one in the circular island, are very repetitive and very close together, and probably one could be avoided, maybe the second one. And the sign on the building itself looks like it's about 6 feet long. And I think that these signs are for expressways. They're DOT sized standards, but the manual does allow some variations, and I think that I think they're a bit overkill also. I tended to think that, and again, maybe you need to get the attention to people. I think that the sign that blended in with the color of the structure itself could have been made to be more visible with just red letters, the same letters that were there, the same dimensions that were there, just being reflectorized red or painted red. It became more visible than what was there, and less intrusive than the highway signs. They're pretty intense. So that's what I think are some issues with the existing signs, Daniel.
Dean, there is one on the way out that you say blends in, and you cannot see it at night.
No,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
During the daytime, you kind of see it,
Right.
but at nighttime, you literally can't see. Not that you want to go through there
Sure.
anyway, but
I had pointed that out to Castle several years ago. Both directions needed to be changed, and nothing was done about it at that time. But what has been done, I understand the reasoning for it. So don't.
Oh, no, I don't take any of this personal. I understand my mindset when I went into this was safety over aesthetics. All day, every day, I'm going to pick safety over aesthetics, and I'm going to go with the standard that's outlined per DOT standards. And that's where we started. That was the starting point. And I'm okay with flexing to accommodate within reason. So as long as safety is the priority and not the aesthetics.
Well, I think it's a combination.
We can do a mashup, but ultimately it was the safety item that was in my forefront when I was trying to plan this and get it up.
I have a quick question.
Yes,
Do I understand correctly? These signs, I think Dan maybe said they meet DOT standards for like on a highway, but there's another manual that indicates we may not need to have signs.
No,
Signs.
no, I didn't, you misunderstood.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
Yeah.
These are DOT entryway signs, not highway signs. Don't confuse. Entryway for communities, these are actually specified signs for coming in and out of communities. Not everybody follows them, obviously, because you can see historically across the board, it's not always to the standard. But as I come in, I try to go to the standard with items that I put my name on.
But we're not required to meet DOT standards necessarily. With those signs, are we? As Ian pointed out, perhaps they could be a little smaller.
We can bring them down size.
Any of the signs on the roadways in Pelican Preserve are supposed to comply with the federal manual on uniform traffic control devices.
Okay,
And in that manual, there are different sizes of those particular signs indicated.
okay.
Okay, and the ones that we have in our community that are similar yellow warning signs, diamond-shaped signs. I've seen one that is probably a 24-inch by 24. Most of them are 30-inch by 30-inch. Okay, so there's one small sign on the outbound direction on Pelican Preserve Boulevard at Trieste, I believe, at the intersection. That is a smaller sign, but almost exclusively throughout the community, the diamond signs are 30-inch by 30-inch. These are at least 36, maybe
Yeah, I
larger.
think they're 36.
Yeah, maybe larger, which is, in my opinion, as I read the manual, therefore higher speed roadways. Not necessarily an entry roadway like this, but certainly therefore I-75. We've got a low clearance on I-75. The traffic is going at least 55 miles an hour.
I think you're rounding down.
At least, I said, okay? So the traffic is going fast, and in order to be visible, they need to be large. We're not driving those kinds of speeds here. So I think that there's some latitude.
Some people do.
Yeah,
And I appreciate the discussion because I agree, safety is very important, but aesthetics is too. For
I
those
know,
of
I
us who
agree.
live here, we have to find a compromise.
Yeah, couple of things that I appreciate what Nancy and Tony had to say. When this came up at the last meeting, that's the first thing I said, wow, this is gonna look like a circus out there. I'm glad to see the public is supporting that. The other thing that just confounds me, first of all, I didn't even think we voted on this. I thought it was on the agenda today to vote for the approval of this. It just amazes me and all the projects we have out there. This damn thing got done in 2 weeks. I mean, we got other stuff we've been waiting 2 years. I mean, who?
When it becomes a safety issue, it becomes my discretion to a certain dollar sign with Chelsea. And became a safety issue because I was afraid,
Well,
honestly, that somebody was going to
Why weren't we ever
get struck.
consulted on this? I mean, why did any of this governing body ever have any say on what this is gonna happen? I mean, it just surprised me. It's like, whoa.
yeah, I think we should have had a discussion, more of a discussion than we did last time, for sure.
But I mean, back there, I mean, wow, I mean, that big sign on the portico, I think I'm going through a tunnel in the Pennsylvania Turnpike. We don't.
Yeah.
Please, and get rid of one of the signs. One sign is plenty. That's my recommendation. I know you like safety. I just don't buy it. I think residents obviously like aesthetics, so I think we got to listen to them.
Any further comment? Okay, thank you. Next one, new IQ guardhouse camera quote.
So I'll do this as an item that I'm working on. Recently we had a security guard fall asleep inside the security entryway there. And there is a blind spot in the backside of the guardhouse that they know exactly. You can see the guy's feet. You know, he knows exactly where the threshold's at. Had the gate and the locked upright position, tucked back into the guard shack and was asleep. Got caught, was reprimanded and fired. Actually, ultimately was let go. And now I'm working with New IQ, who does the contract for the cameras inside of the guardhouse to extend it to be able to capture that dead zone. They have not given me back, even though they promised last Friday they would give me back a proposal to add that one camera. I still have not gotten back that dollar sign. So I'll bring that to the next meeting, hopefully as long as I get a response back from them.
Daniel, is the area out underneath on the exit, underneath the portico or whatever, on the exit where the gate is that covered by a camera too? I mean, I've seen the guys out there, they seem to walk out there with smoke and talk on their cell phone and things like that, which I think the post orders say they're not to use their own cell phone and things. So I don't know about smoking, but you know, is that covered by camera too? And if you're going to add cameras, should that area make sure that that's covered too, so that you can see some of that?
I'll pull in Danny into this conversation about scoping it so that we can make sure that all areas are covered. Because to be honest with you, I can't tell you what is really covered other than what's been forwarded to me in screenshots and snippets. The area that was identified to me was really the backside of that guard shack. So everything kind of faces in and down forward. Nothing faces back and down to the backside of the guard shack inside of there. But I'll incorporate Danny Clements into the conversation for scoping. I think I'm still well in that frame where I can make amendments for the proposal, and I'll bring that back once I get a dollar sign associated with it for approval.
Yeah, I think the big issue, and we'll probably speak about it in the discussion of contract performance, is that the gate is not supposed to be left in the upright position at night, right? If you look, I think Danny had looked at other segments of the tape of the video earlier and later, and saw multiple times when it was left in the upright position. You know, people think we live in a gated community that you can't get onto the roadways. Well, it's, you know, it's supposed to be a little more difficult than that to get onto our roadways. Right? You don't leave the gates open and shut down for the night. So it's a problem that I think Weiser responded to when you did meet with them. And ultimately the individual was terminated, which I think is the right action, but it shouldn't be allowed to happen at all. So
I echo your statement
Yeah.
across the board. Just so for situational awareness, Laura, myself, and Danny have been sitting down with Weiser quite frequently lately to talk about quality of works rendered and addressing items across the board that are obviously deficient or defunct. It was met initially with a little backlash, but now it seems like Weiser's getting on board with correcting the items and holding their people accountable. So we are getting positive feedback.
The post orders also state that you're supposed to be vigilant with regard to the trucks to make sure the height is adequate.
yeah,
It
vigilant.
doesn't hit the building.
That,
Yeah.
And I
that,
don't know if they haven't done that 3 times.
that's why we put it in there.
You know, and not to stand up for them, but 2 out of the 3 strikes that have happened on the building was something that was back behind the actual truck. So the first time it was a forklift that was attached to the very end of a trailer, and the driver just like, my truck is this high, and never accounted for how much more clearance he needed for that forklift. And then in the second time, it was a guy who just switched trucks. He takes that trailer through there on a regular basis with a different truck. That day, his truck was getting serviced, and he moved over to a different truck with a trailer hitch that was just slightly higher, which created just enough of a lift that caught that top side overhang. So whether or not a security guard is going to see that at depth when they should, but whether or not they're paying attention to it.
blink
or
and
not.
you
Yeah,
might miss
you
it.
blink, you're gonna miss it, especially with
In
hundreds
all
of vehicles
fairness.
coming through today.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you look at other communities, the one thing you notice is they're much higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know,
Tell you what,
it's a bigger
when
ticket, but
I've got to rebuild this thing in the future, hopefully not, but if I've got to rebuild it, it's definitely gonna be a higher awning or no awning.
Well, the only thing you have for rebuilding the guardhouse and the reserve study is $10,000.
Oh, it's gonna be a lot more than that.
All was in the reserve study for the next 30 years.
Yeah. So the next item of discussion.
Before you do go
Oh,
on
sorry,
that,
go ahead.
yeah, back on the gatehouse, the guardhouse, the overhang on the inbound direction. The lighting in that overhang looks like it's a dining room light with
Oh, the chandelier.
the chandelier with 25-watt bulbs and it's turned down, so they're probably less than 25, right? Can you do something about lighting there without spending a lot of money, like maybe put in some brighter bulbs?
I'll take a look at it. I've seen it. I've looked at it. There's an electrical issue there. Maybe it's time to do a replacement.
Hmm.
And you and I can talk about what we should research and bring to the committee
Okay,
for that.
okay. It's just making the area brighter at night, makes it more visible. So, yeah, there may be an electrical issue I'm not aware of, but certainly change out the bulbs to something that's a little brighter might contribute to better illumination. Okay, sorry. The next one is Atlantic Southern proposal. So this is regarding milling and resurfacing of Brino Drive. Diamante was done last week or earlier this week. And
This is just a surface.
pardon me?
No, they did the entire.
They did the entire.
It was
street.
no grind and replacement.
No, Farm Reno Drive.
Oh,
No,
No,
This is just the circle.
no,
no. So the whole,
this
The whole street.
is the whole street. So, and you had gone out and gotten quotes from four.
yep, from four different companies. Atlantic Southern ended up being the lowest bid. Responsible bid was at $50,881. Boness came in second with $55,665. Scott Construction came in at $59,600, and Ajax came in significantly overboard at $69,744.
And according to the Tetra Tech roadway condition assessment report that was issued last April, the estimate budgeted number for Brino was at $72,857. So this price is about a third less than that number. It's a good price.
And it was on par with Diamante, with what we saw for scoping and pricing and proposals for Diamante as well. Even though Bruno is actually a little bit larger stretch. So it's within the standards from previous works that we've just had scoped and executed.
So would staff be recommending that for the next roadway project being Brino, that we would go with
Atlantic Southern,
Atlantic Southern?
yes. Sadly, we can't make a decision on it today, though.
Well, we can't, and I think we probably need to have that further discussion that I talked about. Ed and I would meeting with Laura and yourself to make sure that we understand budget limitations in the capital side of things. But the Diamante one was about 50,000.
I was,
43.
yeah, it was 43,000.
43,000, okay, and this one at,
So that was done with a different,
it was Boness.
yeah, it was Boness. It was 43,000 and change, I believe. And then Boness was your second runner in this.
Yeah.
And they were a
They were
$5,000
$5,000 more.
roughly
Yeah.
more.
Right, so 43 and 51,000. So we'd be at about $95,000 for 2 roadways. And my understanding, we didn't participate in discussions last year when I think Avila was done, was about $200,000 for Avila.
Yes.
So these prices are a whole lot more competitive than what was done for Avila, which is great, particularly in these times. So
Who did Avila? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Okay. I just wanted to. Stickers and
Long-standing relationship with Atlantic Southern, from what I've been
Okay.
educated. Carol could probably speak about it now.
No.
Okay. From what
I have.
Atlantic Southern has been a
a good
a
vendor.
vendor that we have used across Gateway pretty
Okay.
consistently. And they've got a pretty solid background.
Okay. That answers my question.
And but as I said, Diamante this week, have you had a chance to take a look at it?
I have,
Any
so
comments?
just my initial feedback was there were some hiccups at the beginning. They had some mechanical malfunctions with their primary mill and paving machine, the big machine, the one that actually does the work. They did their best to come on site, do pre-construction, walk through with us with their project manager, daily interaction with Darren from Bonnet, able to stage and cordon off equipment to be on site, ready to go. So that when that mission needed was fixed, that they could get right into it. Ultimately, it was about a week-long delay for that piece of equipment to come out, and there were some learning curves from staff about where we can stage some stuff. So apologies on that one. I'll throw that out there. I'll take that one. Figuring out where we stage in the future is going to be big when it comes to Breno. Trying to figure out where we're allowed to put equipment to have on hand, because typically everybody's going to want to start on a Monday, but they're going to want to mobilize on a Friday and have things on hand prior. I'm learning that also with Matarita 2 with the pavers. Friday, I had them drop all the pavers so that Monday morning they could hit the ground running work-wise. So staging was kind of an item that we had to work through. And then obviously they had their mechanical error hiccup where they had to get a part ordered on emergency and get it out. What I'm learning about these guys is that they have so much work that they are on top of making sure that they're on schedule, because there's 3, 4, or 5 other jobs lined up right behind. Like my team that came out to do the Diamante Road, they were behind schedule because of the fact that they had 2, 3 others. That down machine really cost them money, and they're really responsive when it comes to getting out here and communicating with us. And every day, at the end of the day, I knew I was getting a phone call from Darren to tell me whether or not he's standing right next to the mechanic to tell me whether or not they had the part and when it was going to be fixed. So I think they did a good job. We probably do a little bit better job of communicating across the board with the community about what's happening versus trying to do word of mouth. I know.
It was emailed went out.
Yeah.
So everybody knew. They were all. I would just ask that when we get ready to do Breno, be sure their president or board of that neighborhood helps them arrange for other than hurricane.
Gotcha.
That did become a challenge for us on Diamante.
How much, being a Breno resident, how much notice do you give so we can tell everybody what's going on?
We try our best to notify the community within 2 weeks before the work starts.
Oh, okay.
So once we have, really what it boils down to is once I get a PO issued, everything's been approved through all the boards, and I get the final stamp off to say, Daniel, go get the project done. I'll issue them a purchase order, and at that time, I'll ask them for an MOT plan and then what their schedule looks like to actually conduct the work. When I get that back, right about the time that I give them the PO, our communications side of the house, Randy, myself, and then the Pelican communication specialist tries to start crafting what that message is going to look like, both so that we can put it on the Gateway district website, but also get it out through your newsletter as well. And then once I get a firm date of when they're able to schedule us, because we have to work around their ability to schedule us, then we start trying to push out the communications as well. We aim for a 2-week window
Typically, how long does the project take? How many days?
So Mill and Diamante took 1.5 days, and that's just
Oh,
because they
really?
were,
Oh,
yeah. They can mill in the morning and then come right back behind and lay it down right after.
Communication that went out to our neighborhood on Diamante came through Shoe.
Right.
Because they're a management company, because it didn't make sense to send it out to 5,000 people
Mhm.
when there was only 46 members
Impacted, yeah.
And they might do that again with Breno.
But-
Other neighborhoods, if they can work. with
I will
management
try to do that.
We've got shoes. so-
companies. Well, and we can help arrange that too, because we have contact with them all the time.
There are some things to work around. You know, the trash pickup, heavy vehicles on the freshly paved roadway is the problem. So the Friday pickup is a concern. The trash pickup on Tuesday is a concern. So, you know, your neighbors may be asked to hold their trash and recycling longer than normal,
Oh, my goodness.
okay?
No.
Okay, so, but
But
it's a concern, and having trucks delivering roof
Sure.
tiles for new roofs
Yeah,
may
we
be
got a few of
delayed.
those.
All right, so there's a few things to work on. And, Daniel and his folks, dealt
Wow.
with the city and the,
Thank you.
solid waste people.
Yeah, when you think about the impacts of a project, so Stony Brook, for instance, seal coating all the roads out there, several weeks. Your time in closing down roads, significant impact, especially roads that have dead end with cul-de-sacs, being able to put people in and out with golf carts, working with community association to facilitate some of those things versus most of the roads out here are going to take no more than 2 days to mill and resurface. So it's a very, very minimal impact and slightly more for seal or for the mill and resurface, but then you have a brand new road that's got a lifespan for 20 to 30 years versus steel coat's good for 3-5 tops. So for perspective.
On the, back on Diamante though, so I asked you if you had gone out and looked, and
Yeah.
and the reason why I asked, because I went out the other day and drove the roadway, and I saw some areas that I thought needed to be rolled for additional rolling to be done, down closer to the cul-de-sac. I don't know whether you have the ability to have them come back with just the roller, you know, not the milling machine, but a roller to try to get some more compaction on some of the road, some portions of it. We can look at it if you'd like.
Yeah, we can definitely take a look at it. And if it's outside of the specs, I went through it with Mark yesterday.
Yeah.
Yesterday, yes. And we drove it. Everything seemed within specifications, but if there's an area that I missed, that
Yeah.
we can have that conversation. I got no problems getting them back out with the roller.
Okay. I did this recently on a project up in our community in Massachusetts where the contractor came back a few times. They had trouble meeting driveway grades and things like that.
They still have to come back out and do some pressure washing on the brick pavers that there were some issues with, and they're aware of that. I'll hold their feet to the fire on getting up there with that. But if we get identify it and they need to come back with a roller, maybe we can get to do it all at once.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
So this item I'll bring back the next meeting for Breno.
Will the residents be able to park at town center? Like overnight?
We'd have to figure that out. I'm gonna have to figure out what that plan's gonna look like.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that would be something we'd have to deal with the community association on. I don't know whether there's any spaces that you might be able to utilize at Ravenna, for example.
Well,
You
that would be the easiest if we could work something out with them, because that's right there. But they don't like it.
They don't like it.
Up there. We've already gotten.
Well, I can understand why,
No,
but you know.
no, I know what you mean. That would be the easiest thing.
I had some contractors at the house. I parked my car up there 4 hours.
I got you.
Had notices on my windshield.
Yeah.
Next time I'm gonna get to.
Yeah.
Real. Wow.
4 hours.
Plus it.
The contractor was in my driveway.
Well, we'll have to look at some options.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Member items and report. Deployment of speed monitoring equipment. This one's for you.
Yes. Well, this was told right before Ian and it never got resurrected because Pfizer became aware of the fact that it was not in their contract to do the work.
Mhm.
And so we were trying to figure out who else could do it. Fast forward, we have a maintenance person being hired by the GSCDD that will be full-time here in Pelican. A delay occurred because the first person who was offered the job declined. The second person, I guess, is waiting for, well, you're waiting for the results of a drug test.
Yep.
Whether they go, there's a suspicion he may not go get the drug test. So, you know, we just need that person. We're ready.
The equipment is ready?
The equipment is ready. Jen passed on all the documentation to me before she left.
I know there was an issue, Jennifer, with the power, with the battery.
My understanding is that Danny got that resolved.
Got that resolved. He did something with the solar panel, I think, too, for
One with the
recharging.
solar panel, I think we also bought another battery, if I'm not mistaken. I should go back and look at the notes.
So
We got another
at
battery.
the end of January, Jen Lewis forwarded an email to me from Donald Brownell, who I think is, I don't know if he's president of Viadana, but he said, any chance of getting the radar speed unit set up at the entrance to Viadana from the east and west sides?
Yeah, we had actually worked with him
Okay.
last year, and I went out there, we identified where we wanted to put it.
Okay,
So as soon as, I mean, we, as far as I'm concerned, that can be number one once we get the person to set it up.
good. So we do both directions with the two monitors.
Yeah, it was slightly askew because of posts,
Sure.
what have you, but yeah.
Okay, so we do both directions at the same time, and would we, what duration do you think? Is it a week, 2 weeks?
Usually what we do is 2 weeks, 1 week, we do it with indication of what the speed is and then one silent. Because sometimes you get interesting results if, and what silent means is they're actually recording the speed, but it's not being lit up and sent to the car. Because you get different behavior, so we just like to see what's going on. And then we can see an enormous amount of information about speeds as they're coming up to the sign. Do they start to slow down? So we can see all kinds of stuff like that. And with a week, well, with 2 weeks of data, we usually have a nice amount.
Good.
So, okay, I'll put that as first priority.
That'd be great. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, a couple of years now, but that would be good. Thank you. Continued discussion regarding the streetlight operations and ownership. So 2 meetings ago, we were presented with the proposal by Florida Power and Light to basically replace all of the streetlight infrastructure along Pelican Preserve Boulevard, Cypress Grove Drive, and Prado Drive between the 2 roundabouts. And I think it was then expanded to include some street lighting on tree line from Pelican Preserve Boulevard up to Colonial. It basically entailed about a $400,000 cost to remove and replace all of the existing lights and abandon the below grade conduit and install new below grade conduit. Tell me if I got this right, Ed. So far, okay? Okay. Then there was some questions as to what type of lighting fixtures, light poles would be utilized. I believe that Florida Power and Light is doing some refinement to their proposal at this point. I think Laura might have some information on that. But we haven't moved forward. I suggested that we might have a work group, a streetlight work group convened that could work between meetings. So it would be someone from our committee, Ed, someone from the district, Daniel, and probably someone from the community association or KW would be on that kind of working team to discuss options and poll locations and that sort of thing. We haven't moved forward yet. But I do think that given the continued problems with the existing infrastructure out here, it's probably time. It's probably time. I know you've had Bentley out a few times in the last few weeks and probably have them on a speed dial for future calls.
I do.
Is it normally, does it normally revolve around wet weather? If after wet weather, the get and they need to be worked on, or is there something else that?
Honestly, it's just the aged infrastructure, I think, at this point. You can maybe expand. I haven't seen it based on any weather event. No single trend is really surfacing for me to say why things are tripping or not.
It seemed like back September when we had extensive outages that were a series of different things. It may have been after a thunderstorm or lightning storm when there might have been some surges on the system, but you can get those just from Florida Power and Light doing things out on the line. So it's really hard to tell. I will say the work group concept, Dean had proposed it for the last PPAC meeting as agenda item, and Chelsea wanted us to just bring it up as a topic of discussion at the PPAC. The last month's meeting was long and we didn't get to discuss it. But the idea is Florida Power and Light has offered to do a detailed design and to come up with an actual cost proposal. But the idea of this work group would be to identify certain things and to give input into that design before they do the design. Areas that may need additional lighting, what type of ornamental structures we might like, things like that. Otherwise, I could see us getting into this back and forth where they do a freebie design and give it to us, and we say, oh, but we wanted to change this, we want to change that, and all of a sudden, well, you've got your freebie. Now you're going to have to pay for design change, a redesign or whatever. So if we could put that input in up front, and the idea is to have a representative from the various subcommittees and feedback kind of in this work group that could report back to each of their individual groups, for that feedback. We could kind of accelerate this in compliance with sunshine. So, but it just seems like we need to give input into there. Otherwise, you'll get a typical Florida Power and Light design that, to me, there's places like, pedestrian crosswalks. They need to know where that might be a high importance to have lit better, or golf cart crossings, that they don't know from their aerial photography that they're working with. So that's the whole idea of that work group. So we'll bring it up and discuss it at the next PPAC meeting. So,
But when the time does come, in some sort of a plan, whether it's Florida Power and Light or even replacement by ourselves owning and being responsible for it, that's going to be a big ticket item. It's going to cost a lot of money, and I presume that's going to be a capital project.
It is.
Over several years.
and through all this, we found, through my inventory work, we found that there are 3 unmetered electrical feeds to that system, basically tree line and all of Pelican down to the boulevard, that are unmetered, that we don't know who's getting the bill for it. And Chelsea was supposed to be working with Florida Power and Light to find out where that bill is going, if there is even a bill generated. But that could have an impact on next year's budget too, if they find out where that bill is going and get it corrected. So.
Okay.
So you might want to,
Street lighting for 20 years.
you might want to involve the neighborhoods also, because they'll be worried about spillover of the light into their yards or houses
From the main streets.
from the main street.
Yeah, I've noticed several on are shielded on the backside of the light
Correct.
for that reason, I imagine, yeah.
Well, the new street lighting will probably be very,
Very
I
focused.
won't say very different, but with the LEDs, it's much more directional than the old light bulbs where and even the retrofit like LED light bulbs, they tend to radiate in all directions, whereas the new lights are, LEDs are much more directional, so they can direct the light much more to the pavements. You don't have the spill over back onto the residential properties nearly as much as you have with traditional lighting. So it should be better, much better in that regard. I have to put the proper qualifiers on it because somebody will always complain, but about something. So
Any other comment on that item? Certainly, okay. The wiser access control contract performance review and scoping. So last month we had a workshop session to talk about the items that we want to include or didn't want to include in the rescoping for the new contract that will take effect October 1st. I believe it was agreed by district and board of supervisors that the new contract would include patrol the rover of the town center and the RV maintenance building, RV parking lot out on Tree Line. I think there was some specific that Chelsea had indicated legal, indicating that the rover would be able to observe, but wouldn't be able to really do anything, report, I think.
Report. Observer report.
Observe and report. Did I get that right? Observe and report. So to whom would they report?
911.
I mean, they wouldn't be. It's my impression that what would be desirable is to have the rover check in different locations, make sure that there's no doors in the town center that are propped open at night. That's just me talking as a resident now. So, but that's what I'm thinking. We would want to make sure that the place is secure at night. But is that not what council was suggesting?
Okay, Dean, I could probably help you there.
Thank you.
because
Thank you. I wasn't
I
there.
was there in the
Okay.
conversation.
Thank you, Karen.
The, basically, the idea was that the attorney is telling that we should not do anything that would take on a liability for the district. So a rover can happen and that the rover should observe and report to whomever. I mean, you tell them to report to. It isn't that they have to call the police all the time. So in other words, if they are passing by something, let's say the kitchen, and they see that the door is propped open and there's a light on, they should observe that and report that to somebody immediately. But they shouldn't go up and wiggle the door or open the door and say, hey, anybody in there? Or something like that. That creates a liability for the district then, that person took an action other than reporting what they saw. So maybe it's a fine line, but I think the line has to be drawn somewhere where you don't create a liability for the district.
as I read it, it was, or they said who to report to is up to the post orders.
Okay.
To specify who to report to.
Okay.
So if it's a town center, they would report to the, KW or the town center management. If it's a girl, observe at midnight, it might be to contact the property owner. It's the postal, this committee and the post orders to determine who to
Okay.
report to, as I understood it.
Interesting.
Or if they are roving around and they see a big geyser going off, they are to report that immediately to the district.
Okay.
And the district does have a 24/7 number.
Mhm.
So, or if they see people running through something or other, with flashlights or something, then you could call the police. So this committee would help write the post orders that determine who they report to. But that they should not take an action that would create a liability for the district.
And thank you, Carol, and thanks, Ed, for clarifying. So is that liability concern because of who's paying the contract? Who's paying for their service?
It's because of who might get sued.
Well,
And it's not-
anybody might get sued.
But if they're also observing non-CDD property, which
That's
is another liability issue.
That's why,
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
but even if they're on a CDD property, Pelican Preserve Boulevard,
Right.
you're going down and you see a big hog out there, whatever.
Digging in dirt.
Right. You know, even that should be observed and reported.
I guess I'm wondering about the taking an action. And so was there discussion about any cost sharing between the district and the community association, or we're not at
No.
that point? Okay,
Our understanding from the CDD discussion that we had was that either you or the committee was looking for some direction from the CDD
Mhm.
as the CDD board itself as to where the line can be drawn as to how far you can go.
thank you.
And Tony did have a written opinion that I'm sure the district would be happy to share with you. That he had that day at the meeting also. It was at our last,
It's on.
It's on the agenda.
Tony, our attorney.
Your turn, yeah.
Tony Beers.
There was some message I got, I think, from Laura or Chelsea that said Stony Brook has some arrangement and I guess Stony Brook pays for the over and the district pays for the gate control or something to that effect, which to me sounded like that might have been a way to address the issue of non-CDD assets being very important.
Liability is because even in both, as I understand it, in both Stony Brook and this, it's a CDD contract.
Yeah.
Even though Stony Brook may be paying for the road, it's still a CDD so it doesn't really matter who's paying the rover portion. It's because it's a CDD contract that
Okay,
is where is into the liability issue.
And I also think that there was some, on the part of, the office staff at CDD, the two, so what you do in one, you do in other, or what you do over there, or whatever. But Stony Brook and Pelican are two different entities and have actually always operated as two different
Sure.
entities.
Yeah.
So, I think that might have been put together.
Okay.
The idea of what's good for one, you should do for the other.
well, yeah, I was just thinking of a mechanism. I know in my private world of working with contracts and having a prime, I would be the prime contractor and Ted would be a subcontractor to me. And I would require that Ted, so Ted was going to do some work on behalf of the owner. And I would want Ted to give me an insurance certificate that said I was covered as an additional insured, that sort of thing. And I could kind of imagine something like that happening with a contract with the district that has another entity that has interest in that, like the community association. So I guess it's time will tell.
The idea of price and cost was not.
Wasn't good. Okay. Thank
It
you.
was more the liability
Okay.
and how far we can go.
Okay, thank you. So I think I recall that Laura had indicated sometime in May, a draft scope of services would be needed. Do you were present at that meeting, or no, you came in when you may not have heard that part of it, but because you were at the landscape meeting that morning when you came back. But is this something that the district is preparing a draft of and that we will get to review? Or are we supposed to prepare a draft of it and the district will get to review? Any thoughts on that, Daniel?
Honestly, it's just a work in progress. The idea of the working groups that we had was to scope it and put together your proposal and scope and really capture a lot of what Danny has into the new contract, working with Danny, and then getting it drafted for ITB to put back out or to figure out if we're going to piggyback off of a different contract that can meet that scope. Laura, you can chime in if you've got anything different than what I just said.
No, it's basically just taking what we have now, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, what things you want to keep, what things you want to change, and then that would come back. Since ultimately the contract is in your budget, we are looking for input from your team.
So if it's due to be completed in May so that we can meet the October deadline, then should we create a deadline where we want to see it so that we have a chance to take a look and approve it? And should that be April or should that be March?
Yeah.
Given time to
Given
take a look.
our success of having meetings?
Well, I was actually, yes, but I was also thinking actually, we'll take a look at it, but we'll want to think about it or make some changes to it. So we need an iteration.
I think you're right. I think probably in that sense, March, our March meeting, we ought to have something to review.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Good.
So who has that action item to make sure we have that document? Is that Danny or is that somebody at the district?
It'll
or-
be me working with Danny and
Okay.
Randy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and the other thing I was just going to say for that, thinking about how long it took us to update post orders.
Do we have to?
Yeah, actually, sorry. Once we have this approved, I would propose that we start working on updating the post orders because that tends to take a while.
And the post orders wouldn't vary with whoever the
Right.
contractor is.
Yeah, the wrapping might,
Yeah.
but the actual.
This is what we want you to
Carol's
do.
point, yeah, here's what we want to do. Here's who here are your duties.
Yep,
If you
good.
find something, here's who you report to. So we can do it pretty generically and then just wrap it around or have it wrapped around whatever.
And
with
Danny's
whoever
got
wins.
all that already.
He's got that.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's done a lot of the scoping already. Now
Okay.
it's just capturing it in a document to formalize it.
Terrific.
Okay, I think that covers everything on the agenda. I do want to express appreciation to Mark Eversman from the Landscape Committee. I think it was last week, I was out in the neighborhoods and I was approaching the golf cart crossing on Trieste from towards Pelican Preserve Boulevard. And one of the golf cart crossing signs was completely obliterated by palm fronds that had dropped down. You just couldn't see. So I took a picture and I sent it to him on a Saturday and said, Mark, could you just take a look at this sometime? And on Monday morning at about 8:05, he sent me a picture. He said, done.
Yeah.
Just call me out.
Yeah.
I love to do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was incredibly responsive. So
Where are we at with the bicycle and speed hump engineering?
So those are two separate projects. They are both at the 50% design stage, being reviewed now internally. I had some review comments. I think Chelsea did. I think you are. Or
Yeah, I still need to,
they're
I need
close.
to still need to take a look at them and finish them out.
So it's close. Once we get the comments back to Florida Transportation Engineering, they will address them and then I believe submit to the city for permitting. The speed hump one, though, I wanted to make sure that, because it didn't say it yet on the drawings I had seen, that they need to remove the rumble strips, particularly on the community association property. You know, where the property line is coming into the town center area. So that needs to be done on the drawings too, remove that. And for that reason, I presume, Nancy, the community association would want a chance to look at this.
Yes, sure, I think we would like to look at them.
Yeah.
But they need to be removed. 'Cause
Yeah.
Apparently they should not have been installed there in the first place.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. We weren't sure where the property line was, I guess.
That's
It's
the best case scenario with the speed humps installed.
Assuming we have the financing to do it, the funding to do it, it should be done during this summer. I mean, it's not far, it's not a long lead time. The bicycle lane designation, those drawings are, I'm sure, are more extensive than what was anticipated when some pricing was being obtained for marking the bicycle stencils on the ground. You know, there's more dashed lines and there's some green pavement markings and white, you know, there's a few things that are needed to comply with the design standards, but FTE has done a nice job on that, and we'll see that coming out. Like I say, probably that too could be summertime, before next season, I would think.
So you put in the speed humps when everybody goes back up north, and when they come back, they'll be surprised when they see.
Yeah, where did these come? Where did this come from?
Pleasantly.
Anything else for us to discuss?
Just a couple of things. For the first time I went out to see the Cypress Grove Circle and all those things. And I noticed that there's, it's not important to me, but there's a new markings for crosswalk.
They're not done yet.
Oh, okay.
They're not done.
They're
So-
concrete.
I mean, not that I can, is there going to be concrete to make it?
So when that was originally scoped for my time coming in, they missed that whole add a sidewalk portion. So they had McShay do the striping, Likens do the signs, nobody do the crosswalk for that north side of the.
Yeah,
the
the concrete
roundabout.
work.
So I've got a proposal right now that I'm moving forward with, because to me, it's a safety issue, with Scott Construction to put in that crosswalk right there. We'll have to move the signs because the signs were installed right dead smack in the middle of it, even though I clearly talked to Likens and asked them not to put it there, from their temp signs to when they put in their permanent signs. So there'll be some stuff moving around in there, but that quote, I can tell you what that dollar sign was. Give me 2 seconds.
So that'll be concrete on from the two sides, and then in the middle and the median, it'll be concrete, and put
I just have.
the tactile strips, the yellow strips down too. There's also a sign when you make the right turn onto Carina. It has a pedestrian crossing sign. And then it has a plaque under the sign, and it's supposed to be an arrow pointing down. It says ahead right now. So that's got to be changed to an arrow. And there's a 15-mile-an-hour sign, speed limit sign, going into Casella Way. That is a temporary 15-mile-an-hour sign. It's not the right size, but the frame is correct. The sign is not. It's going to be replaced.
So the quote for the actual walkway to be put in is $8,500 with the curbing and the appropriate ADA compliancy.
Let them walk in the grass.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know how frequently that. crosswalk.
It's pretty frequent because it's the pinch point in that the highly trafficked
Yeah.
zones between Cypress and Pelican. So you
Okay.
have 3 other areas that you can do it on, but those are the outliers, the quickest line of coming across is
Yeah,
right there.
and I got a phone call that a resident came through the right turn only lane to come onto Cypress Grove Drive, and whoa, there was somebody in the crosswalk. You know, suddenly they had to react. So, you know, it's getting used to it also.
And are all the hurricane sign repairs done?
No,
'Cause I know.
there's still a couple of outliers out there.
I know the street sign going into Madrid 2
Is mislabeled.
is mislabeled.
Mhm.
I sent that to Jennifer, and I didn't know. if it
I-
had
and
gone
I-
to us.
I have forwarded it to both Craig and Omar from Likens to correct it. You know, we're on a recorded line here, but I will say the worst of the best or the best of the worst sometimes on that one. I have not had a great experience working with Likens, and I know Chelsea before I ever came on, I felt the exact same way. There's a disconnect between people on the ground actually installing signs and their project manager on their high side. So.
Well, and Google's got it wrong too. You know, the wrong street name on that little street segment going into Madrid too. But I just wanted to make sure it didn't get lost in the
Oops.
transition of PW response.
I will say this much though, even if it's mislabeled, I haven't sent, there's 3 different projects with Likens right now across the entire district, and I haven't had a single pay app for one of them, so. They can put in signs, they're not getting paid for anything right now. So,
Who controls the major signs out on the tree line? Because the one of them's blank, you know, since
it's DOT.
Or the county.
Yeah, the Lee County DOT. That's a county road.
I just had one other thing, personal thing, that the golf cart crossing on Cypress. I'm not a golfer. How do we get golfers to use that instead of cutting across? Because what happened to me the other day on the bicycle, I saw the guy cut across. He comes up and cuts me off as he cuts in where he's supposed to. I mean, really close. Is there anything we can do to make them use what it's assigned, any signage or anything a golf club can do?
I had met with Heritage Golf last year and started a conversation about that, and they were willing to talk about what could be done. There was some resistance, I think, at the PPAC level on about doing anything with the crossings.
Which crossing with Cypress?
Well, you know, you're on Azura, correct?
Well, there's a couple of them.
Is that
But
the one where you cross and then you
The
kind of
the
go
one
on
that's
that
right
little
off,
path?
the first one you get to right off the top of the
Okay.
Oh, that one.
so
What do they do?
They cross at
Azura,
Azura.
Mhm.
They cross the highway, Azura.
And come down the street.
Yeah, instead of going straight on the
Yeah.
path down to the crossing and come across where everybody can see them and everything's fine.
Yeah,
Instead
I've
they-
been on a service, I've seen that, I just wasn't, because
Yeah.
there's others down on the roundabout, so I wasn't
Yeah.
sure. which one.
so
Today I saw 2 golf carts come out there. One went down the street and then one continued on, went up, over, and then down on the sidewalk.
Hmm.
That was the first time I'd seen somebody do that at that location.
down the sidewalk or down, there's a cart path,
The
there's a
thing
golf
I
cart
don't get
path.
is what.
No, not that side,
Oh, the other
on the
side.
other side. And so
Yeah,
they
yeah,
crossed
yeah.
the street.
Yeah.
So two golf carts.
Yeah.
One went down the street, one continued up and then down the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Which I thought was crazy.
I just wonder what their thinking is, why they
Well,
think that's better.
you know,
I don't know.
there's an interesting thing. The club has golf carts that are allowed to cross the roadway. But I don't believe that they are allowed to operate on the roadway, if you will. That, you know, so they,
Oh,
right? So
okay.
they're
That's
not
why they're on the
road,
sidewalk.
Build up safety thing.
right. They're not
Okay.
road ready, if you
I
will.
figured there was a reason why he continued onto the sidewalk.
Yeah.
But why he didn't go down the path he should have gone down to begin with, I
Well,
don't know, but.
many people don't like to make the crossing where they're supposed to, because when automobile and trucks, when traffic is coming up Cypress Grove Drive or on the curve, they're approaching the golf cart crossing. And people waiting in the golf cart to go out, they're kind of timid because, oh, there's somebody coming. So there's a few things that I had talked about at the time with Heritage and would like to explore further. Some of it is trimming back some of the shrubbery by that crossing so that visibility is better.
Mhm.
And that, it's not clear to me whether that is golf course or community association, or I'm not sure who's responsible.
Gateway has a landscape easement on both sides. Or on the north side and then the south
Okay.
side, they just got one with a big door.
Okay. Okay, so trimming back some shrubbery. A sign at the golf course cart path exiting just before Azura that says follow cart path. And then something on the cart path itself by the golf course, a couple of stencils or one stencil that's a golf cart. A stencil, stay on the golf cart. A stencil in the crosswalk, and then back onto the golf cart crossing. Tell them where they're supposed to go.
Yeah. I was curious, is there a sign there now? I should
I
have,
thought there was.
for the golfers.
It-
When they come to that, is there a sign?
Is a stop sign, but it doesn't tell them where to go.
Well, and that's gonna be really easy on that stop sign there at Azura to put a sign, but
Just
Right.
put
something that,
Put
whether that.
an arrow for straight.
Yeah.
But as Tony said, as Tony said,
anyway.
signs don't necessarily make people comply.
How about a
But if we
no-
tell them,
How about a no right?
that's right. Going across that intersection diagonally, in my opinion, is dangerous, very dangerous. And it happens many, many times during the day.
Yes.
It's much more dangerous than crossing where you're supposed to cross. So I think it's something that was on our list,
Okay.
and we still need to pursue it. Anything else? Well, this has been a great non-meeting.
Yeah, boy, I'm glad I didn't.
We covered a lot. Thank you, everybody, for coming. The next meeting is it the last, is it the last Thursday?
This is the fourth Thursday.
The fourth Thursday, so 1, 2, 3, I think it's the 28th, 28th,
Yeah, 28.
28th of March,
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
Good.